My name is Dr. Arlen. For most of my life, I believed the universe was a set of beautiful, complex, but ultimately noble rules. Equations waiting to be solved. I was a cartographer of the impossible, drawing maps of places where light itself cannot escape. I believed that with enough math, enough patience, enough data we could understand anything. I was wrong. What I found out there, in the silent deep, wasn't a new rule. It was something that broke all of them. It was a whisper in the dark that became a scream. And it's a scream I can still hear every time I close my eyes. This is my confession, my warning. This is the story of Keres. The black hole that started asking questions back. It began, like so many catastrophes do, with pure, unadulterated excitement. I was the head of Project Icarus, a long-range observatory tethered in the quietly of a gas giant 3 light-years from Earth. Our mission was simple: study the life cycle of a newly identified stellar mass black hole, designated Keres. It was supposed to be textbook, a routine survey. The first anomaly was a flicker, a blip in the accretion disk data. My junior analyst, Ben, he brought it to me. Young kid, brilliant, still thought the universe was a friendly place. Dr. Arlen, you might want to take a look at this. Keres X-ray output it just did. For exactly 1.337 seconds. Then it came back, 0.2% brighter. I remember smiling, leaning over his shoulder at the hollow screen. Instrument error. Or a chunk of something particularly dense falling in. Run a diagnostic. I did, he said, his voice tight with a tension I mistook for professional concern. The scopes are clean. And it happened again. Same duration. Exactly. That got my attention. Exact repetition isn't a language the cosmos speaks often. Natural phenomena are messy, stochastic. This was clean, precise. I felt that first little spark, the one that ignites every obsession. Show me. For 6 days, it continued. Every 17 hours, for minutes, and 12 seconds. A perfect, rhythmic dip and recovery. The team was buzzing with theories. A pulsar in a tight binary orbit? Some kind of lensing effect we hadn't accounted for. We were scientists. We reached for the known, however improbable. I called a team meeting. Around the polished composite table, the faces of my colleagues were lit by the shimmering, malevolent jewel that was Keres, rotating slowly in the main viewer. It's a natural harmonic, insisted Dr. Chen, our astrophysicist. Resonance in the inner disk. We're seeing a standing wave. A standing wave that turns on and off like a switch. I countered, unable to keep the thrill out of my voice. The precision is the problem. It's too perfect. Ben chimed in. What if it's not a dip? What if it's an eclipse? Something passing in front of the disk on a perfect orbit. The energy signature would be different, Chen shot back. And what could possibly orbit that close to the event horizon without being torn apart? Nothing. Nothing should be able to do that. The word should hang in the air. It's the most dangerous word in science. We were already bumping up against the limits of what should be possible. That's when mission control chimed in. A voice from 3 light-years away, laced with static and bureaucratic caution. It was Director Croft. I could picture him in his pristine office on Earth, a world away from the raw reality of the void. Icarus Actual, this is Control. We've reviewed your data stream. Fascinating stuff, Arlen. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Prioritize the core mission parameters. Catalog the phenomena, but do not divert significant resources to speculative investigation. Understood. I felt my jaw tighten. Director, with respect, this is the core mission. We're observing behavior that redefines our understanding of accretion physics. This isn't a diversion, it's potentially the discovery of a lifetime. Your lifetime, perhaps? Croft's voice crackled back, cool and distant. My lifetime is measured in budget cycles and congressional hearings. Observe Van Locke, Doctor. That is an order. The channel closed. The frustration was a physical heat in my chest. They couldn't see it. They were too far away, looking at numbers on a screen, not into the abyss itself. But I was here. I could feel it. There was a pattern here, a secret waiting to be decoded. I became singular. I started pulling double shifts, then triple shifts. Meals were forgotten. Sleep was a frustrating interruption to the data stream. My world shrank to the glow of my terminal, the rhythmic pulse of Keres on my screens. Dip. Recover. Dip. Recover. A heartbeat. A metronome counting down to something. My wife, Alara, would call on the private comms. Her face would appear on my secondary monitor, a window to a life that felt increasingly distant, like a dream it once had. Arlen, you missed our call again. Again. Her voice was gentle, but I could hear the worrying etched into the lines around her eyes. I know. I'm sorry, love. It's just we're so close to a breakthrough. You wouldn't believe the data we're getting. I believe you're not sleeping, she said. I can see it in your eyes. You look haunted. I'm not haunted, I'm focused. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the main screen. The next dip was due in minutes. It's that thing, isn't it? Keres. She said the name like a curse. It's all you talk about. It's in every conversation. You're a billion miles away even when you're right here with me. It's important, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. This is why we're out here. This is the there and going where no one has gone before. She was quiet for a long moment. Just promise me you're still in there, Arlen. Promise me you remember what it's like to look at the stars without trying to solve them. I promised. I promised her anything to get back to the data. I told myself I'd make it up to her later, after the Nobel Prize, after the textbooks were rewritten. There would be time. There was always time. I was a fool. The first major revelation came 2 weeks later. Dan and I were running a new predictive model, trying to forecast the precise millisecond of the next dip. The clock ticked down. 3, 2, 1, nothing. The X-ray output held steady. The rhythm was broken. Dan looked at me, his face pale. Did we miscalculate? Did the orbit decay? No. I whispered, my heart hammering against my ribs. No. Look. The instruments weren't silent. They were going insane. But not from a dip. A new signal was emerging from the system. A frequency modulation, layered on top of the X-ray spectrum. It was faint, buried in the roar of the disk, but it was there. And it was complex. It wasn't a pulse. It was a pattern. My God. Ben Brett. It's structured. We worked for 48 hours straight, filtering out the background noise, amplifying the signal. What we uncovered stole the breath from my lungs. It wasn't a simple on-off switch. It was a cascade, a sequence of pulses that varied in duration and intensity. It looked less like a natural harmonic and more like a code. The fear in the lab was palpable now, a thick, electric smell in the recycled air. The excitement was still there, but it was tempered by a deep, primal unease. We were no longer just observers. We were listeners. I defied Croft's direct order. I retasked the entire array, every dish, every sensor, toward decoding that signal. I didn't care about the consequences. This was bigger than protocols, bigger than budgets. Arlen, this is insane, Chen argued, her hands flying over her console, trying to keep up with my reprioritization commands. You're burning out the primary dish. We're not configured for this granularity of analysis. Then well reconfigure. I barked, my eyes never leaving the waterfall display of data now pouring in. The pattern was repeating. A long pulse, 3 short, a pause, to long don't you see? This is it. This is the first page. The next revelation was even more terrifying. We weren't just receiving. The pattern changed. It responded. I had directed a focused burst of energy, a simple radar ping, the oldest hello in the human arsenal toward the source of the signal. It was a shot in the dark, a desperate, crazy attempt to what? To say we're here. For 3 agonizing hours, there was nothing, just the resumption of the original, complex pattern. Then, as the ping's lightspeed round trip would have been concluding, it happened. The signal stopped. The entire accretion disk of Keres flickered. Not a dip, a stutter. For a fraction of a second, the most violent, energetic region in the local universe seemed to freeze. It was like watching a heart skip a beat. The instrument screamed in protest, overloading from the sudden, bizarre drop in energy. Then, it came back, and with it, a new signal, sharper, clearer, more complex. It had heard us, and it had answered. I felt my chest tighten, a cold sweat beating on my forehead. The obsession that had been a burning drive now felt like a cold hand around my heart. We weren't studying a phenomenon anymore. We were having a conversation, and we had no idea who, or what, was on the other end. Mission control erupted. The priority channel screeched to life. Croft's voice, stripped of all is bureaucratic calm, raw with panic. Icarus actual. What in God's name are you doing? We've got a massive energy deviation from Keres. Our systems down here are lighting up like a Christmas tree. Report. Control. We initiated a active scan protocol, I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to control it. You what? Arlen, I gave you a direct order. You've compromised the mission. You've compromised the entire station. Director, you don't understand. No, you don't understand, he screamed, the signal distorting with his fury. That is a class for singularity. You do not poke it with a stick. Stand down. Power down all non-essential systems and prepare for a full diagnostic and security lockdown. That is a direct order. Croft out. The channel went dead. The lights on the bridge flickered, and a low, urgent alarm began to blare. The lockdown sequence had been initiated from Earth. They were shutting us down, taking my discovery away. I looked around the bridge. My team was staring at me, their faces masks of fear and confusion. Den looked like he was going to be sick. Chen was already powering down her station, her hands shaking. No. This couldn't happen. Not now. We were on the verge of everything. I made a decision, the most reckless, dangerous decision of my life. I slammed my hand down on the command override. The alarm cut off abruptly. Then, Chen, listen to me, I said, my voice low and intense. They want to shut us down. They want to blind us and pretend this isn't happening. But we are the only people in human history who are witnessing this. Are we really going to let a man in a suit on Earth tell us to look away? Arlen, he's right, Chen pleaded. We don't know what that is. We provoked it. Look at the gravitational readings. I glanced at her screen. My blood ran cold. The space-time curvature around Keres was fluctuating. It was as if the black hole's mass was breathing, shifting minutely in time with the new, complex signal. It was learning, adapting, and it was beginning to exert its influence beyond its event horizon. The danger was no longer theoretical. It was here, in the room with us, and my obsession had invited it in. The ambient hum of the station grows slightly louder, underscored by a new, almost imperceptible low-frequency vibration. You have to understand, in that moment, I wasn't thinking about the safety of the station, or my crew, or myself. I was thinking about the signal, the beautiful, terrifying, impossible signal. It was a siren song, and I was hopelessly ensnared. I had to know what it meant. I had to know what it was saying. I had to answer back. Then, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, reroute all power from life support, non-essential, divert it to the comms array. I want a full-spectrum broadcast focused on the source of that signal. Den's eyes went wide. Dr. Arlen, life support? We'll have about 6 hours of air if we do that. Less if we stress the systems. Then we better get an answer in 6 hours, I said, my fingers already flying across the console, authorizing the power transfer. Override codes I hadn't used in years flashed across the screen. I was hijacking my own station. Chen stood up, her chair rolling back and hitting the console behind her with a thud. I can't let you do this, Arlen. This is mutiny. This is suicide. She moved for the emergency comms panel, the one that would send a full distress call and hard-lock the systems. I was faster. My hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. It wasn't a violent gesture, but it was firm. Final, Elara, I said, using her first name for the first time in years, reminding her of the friendship that had existed long before this mission. Please, look at it. I gestured to the main viewer, to the mesmerizing, chaotic dance of light and pattern emanating from the heart of darkness. This is why we became scientists. Not to follow orders, to find answers. And the biggest question the universe has ever asked is being posed to us, right now. Are we really going to walk away? She stared at me, and I saw the war in her eyes, the brilliant astrophysicist who burned with the same curiosity as I did, versus the rational human being who understood the profound risk. The scientist won. Her shoulders slumped, and she nodded, a single, sharp, terrified nod. She returned to her station, her hands moving to help Ben with the power reroute. The station groaned around us, the lights dimmed, and the constant, comforting hum of the air recyclers dropped to a whisper. The bridge was plunged into an emergency power mode, all available energy funneled into the massive dish array pointed at Keres. We're live, Ben said, his voice a hoarse whisper. Full power, broadcasting a mirror of the signal we just received. Silence. The three of us stared at the screens, barely breathing. The data stream was a torrent of no's. Minutes ticked by. 1, 5, 10, nothing. The crushing weight of my folly began to descend on me. I had gambled everything, my career, my crew's lives, my integrity on a hunch. And I had lost. I had destabilized a black hole, and for what? A phantom, a cosmic mirage. Then it happened. It wasn't a signal this time. The entire station shuddered. It was a deep, visceral vibration that came up through the deck plates and into our bones. Alarms we had never heard before began to shriek, gravimetric alarms. Reading a space-time fluctuation. Chen yelled over the din. Massive. It's not from Keres itself. It's here. It's all around us. The main viewer flickered and died. Overloading. The backup screens showed a nightmare. The starfield outside was twisting. It was as if we were looking through a fisheye lens, the pristine pinpricks of light stretching into smears and arcs. We were caught in a gravity well that hadn't been there moments before. We're moving. Den screamed, his hands clawing at his console. Station-keeping thrusters are offline. We're being pulled. Course is directly toward Keres. I felt the blood drain from my face. The cold hand around my heart clenched into a fist. I had done this. My arrogant, stupid need to hear a voice in the dark had summoned a tide that was now pulling us into the abyss. The comms crackled, but it wasn't mission control. It was Alara, on my private channel. Her face filled my personal screen, pale but calm amidst the chaos. The station was shaking around me, but her image was steady. Arlen, she said, her voice clear. There was no accusation in it, just a profound, heartbreaking sadness. My love, what have you done? I had no answer. I could only watch as the trajectory plot on Ben's screen calculated our time to event horizon. The numbers spun down, impossibly fast. Hours had become minutes. We have to break free. Chen was working frantically, trying to fire the emergency thrusters, but the gravitational shear was too great. The systems were failing. The structure won't hold. We're going to be spaghettified before we even hit the horizon. This was it. This was the end. Not with a bang, but with a terrible, silent pull from a darkness had been so desperate to understand. My obsession had killed us all. I looked at the twisted starfield, at the beautiful, monstrous thing I had unleashed, and I felt a terror so complete it was almost peaceful. And then, it stopped. The shaking ceased. The alarms cut out. The starfield on the screen snapped back to its normal, steady state. The artificial gravity, which had been wavering sickeningly, stabilized. Silence. Deep, ringing, impossible silence. We were still here. We were holding. Our trajectory had stabilized, not moving away, but not moving closer. We were in orbit, a perfect, stable orbit around Keres, where no orbit should possibly exist. We all sat there, gasping, trying to comprehend the reprieve. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely bring up the sensor readings. The gravimetric shear. Ben whispered. It's gone. It's like we're in a bubble. A pocket of calm space. On my console, a single data stream came back online. It was the comms array. It was receiving a new signal. This one was different. It wasn't a complex pattern of pulses. It was simpler, cleaner, a single, repeating sequence. I ran it through the decoders, my heart thudding against my ribs. It wasn't a language we knew. It wasn't math. It wasn't anything from our databases. But somehow, I understood it. The meaning wasn't in the symbols, it was in the essence of the pattern itself. It was a question, the same question, over and over. It was the first thing a child learns to ask, the most basic, fundamental query of a conscious mind. The signal from the heart of the black hole, the thing that had almost killed us, that had defied every law of physics I held sacred, was asking, simply, who are you? Silence. That was the worst part. After the shaking stopped, after the starfield righted itself, there was just this profound, deafening silence. It was heavier than the nose. It pressed in on our eardrums, on our souls. We were alive. We were stable. And that was the most terrifying thing of all, because it was impossible. Den was the first to break. A choked, half sob, half gasp. What was that? Chen was all business, her fingers flying across her console, her face a mask of professional composure that was paper thin. I could see the tremor in her hands. I'm reading a localized stabilization of spacetime, a perfect geosynchronous orbit at 500 kilometers from the nominal event horizon. She looked up, her eyes wide with a horror that no amount of training could suppress. Arlen, that's not a natural orbit. The tidal forces here should have turned us into a stream of atoms 5 minutes ago. It's being managed. Managed. The word hung in the recycled air, cold and final. We weren't just being observed, we were being curated. And then I saw it, on my own screen, the decoded signal, that simple, repeating sequence. The question, "Who are you?" I felt a cold sweat trickle down my spine. My mouth was desert dry. "It's talking," I whispered. The words didn't feel like my own. "What?" Den asked, his voice cracking. "The signal, it changed. It's not a pattern anymore. It's a question." I put it on the main speaker, a soft, digital chime that repeated every 4.7 seconds. A gentle, patient, alien ping. "Who are you?" The three of us listened to it. This wasn't the roar of a cosmic beast. This was the calm, inquisitive voice of something infinitely old, infinitely powerful, and it was directed at us. The comms panel lit up. "Mission control." Croft's voice was frantic, stripped of all its authority, raw with panic. "Icarus actual. Icarus actual, respond. We lost your telemetry. We had a massive gravimetric spike. What is your status?" "Arlen, for God's sake, answer me." I reached for the mic, my hands shaking. Chen grabbed my wrist. "Don't," she hissed. "What are you going to tell them? That we're parked on the doorstep of a black hole that's asking us our name. We have to report this," I said, but the conviction wasn't there. "Report what?" She shot back, her voice a desperate whisper. "That we've made first contact with a singularity. They'll think we've had a collective psychotic break. They'll declare an emergency, try to send a rescue mission, and whatever this is, it might not like that." She was right. We were in uncharted territory. Every protocol, every rulebook, was useless. We were writing the rules now, in real time, with our lives on the line. Den was staring out the main viewport. "The disk," he murmured. "Look at the disk." We turned. The furious, chaotic maelstrom of the accretion disk was changing. The violent, turbulent clouds of superheated gas were settling. They were forming patterns, vast, slow-moving spirals and concentric rings of light and darkness. It was like watching storm clouds organize themselves into a formal greeting. It was beautiful. It was utterly horrifying. It was showing off. "Who are you?" the speaker chimed. The obsession that had driven me to this point underwent a terrible transformation. It was no longer just about discovery. It was about survival. About communication. We had to answer. But how do you answer a black hole? "We have to respond," I said, my voice firmer now. "We have to tell it." "Tell it what?" Chen asked, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Our names. Our mission designation. Our DNA sequences." "What does who mean to something like that?" She gestured at the mesmerizing, ordered beauty outside. "We start with the basics," I said, moving back to my console. "Mathematics, physics, the universal constants, the hydrogen line, the language of the universe. We already did that with the ping." Den cried. "And it did that." He pointed a trembling finger at the stabilized view of the event horizon. "No," I argued, a desperate energy filling me. The ping was a shout, a crude nose. This is different. It's asking a question. We need to give an answer. A proper introduction." I began compiling a package. The value of pi, the prime numbers, the atomic structure of hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, the double helix of DNA, a simple image of our solar system, with the third planet highlighted. It was the same basic message humanity had been broadcasting for centuries, but now it felt hopelessly inadequate, like giving a cave drawing to a gong. I prepared to send it. "Arlen, wait," Chen said, her voice low. "Think about this. What if our answer is disappointing?" I froze, my finger hovering over the transmit key. Her words hit me with the force of a physical blow. What if we were ants trying to explain our anthill to a being that shaped galaxies? What if our simple math and biology were so primitive that it simply lost interest? And if it lost interest, what would happen to the delicate, impossible bubble of stabilized spacetime that was currently keeping us alive? The danger was no longer just being torn apart. It was being ignored. But it was a risk we had to take. We couldn't just stay silent. I sent the message. The wait was agony. We watched the power drain from the station, the life support systems straining at their minimal levels. The air was getting stale, tinged with the smell of our own fear. We watched the accretion disk. We listened to the gentle, patient ping. "Who are you?" A minute passed, 2. Then, the ping stopped. The silence that followed was even more profound than before. It was the silence of a held breath, the silence of a judge's chamber before the verdict is read. The main viewer flickered. The image of the beautifully ordered disk dissolved, replaced by a torrent of data. It was our message. But it was wrong. The numbers were off. Pi was calculated to 1,000 places, but then it changed. The last 100 digits were different. Corrected. A more elegant, more precise value. The image of our solar system was there, but a 8th planet was added, orbiting neatly between Mars and Jupiter. A planet our own model said could never have formed, could never have stable orbit. And it was labeled with a symbol that somehow, deep in my hindbrain, I understood to mean missing. It wasn't just receiving our message. It was grading our homework. And we were getting things wrong. My God. Chen breathed. It's showing us where our models are incomplete. It's teaching us. The screen cleared. A new image formed. It was a rendering of our station, the Icarus, perfect in every detail. And next to it, a rendering of a human form, a generic, simplified human, and pointing from the human to the station, a series of symbols. It took us a moment, then figured it out first. It's a schematic, he said, his voice full of awe. It's showing us how to modify our comms array, how to boost the signal, how to talk back more clearly. The revelation was staggering. It wasn't just a force of nature. It was an intellect, a craftsman. It wanted a better conversation. It was giving us the tools to have it. The obsession returned, tenfold. This was beyond any scientific discovery in human history. This was a tutorial from the universe itself. We have to do it, I said, my eyes glued to the schematic. The modifications were brilliant, using the station's own structure as a resonant antenna, harnessing the background radiation of the black hole itself as a power source. It was technology centuries ahead of our own. With what power? Chen argued, though I could see the scientist in her was as captivated as I was. Life support is at 20%. We don't have the energy for a hardware refit. As if in response, the station gave a gentle shudder. The lights on the bridge brightened. The hum of the air recyclers returned to its normal, healthy pitch. Chen stared at her console, her face pale. Power we're at 100%. Reactor output is normal, but the readings are impossible. The deuterium levels haven't changed. It's not giving us power, it's lowering our entropy. It's making our systems more efficient. I don't. The laws of thermodynamics. Her voice trailed off in sheer helplessness. The message was clear. The tools were provided. The power was provided. The invitation was open. We worked like beings possessed. Den and Chen, despite their terror, were brilliant. We followed the schematic with a kind of reverent precision. It was the most important engineering project in human history. And we were following instructions from a black hole. Ours bled together. The only sound was the clatter of tools and the gentle, now comforting chime of the question, "Who are you?" We finished the modifications. The comms array was now something entirely new, a beautiful, terrifying piece of alien-human hybrid technology. It hummed with a soft, potent energy. "It's ready," Ben said, wiping sweat from his brow. "What do we say?" We all looked at each other. The moment of truth. We had the microphone. What was our first word to God? "The truth," I said softly. "We tell it the truth." I opened a channel. I leaned toward the mic, my heart hammering against my ribs. I spoke a single word, the most honest answer I could give. "Curious." I sent the transmission. The response was immediate. The gentle ping stopped. The accretion disk, which had held its beautiful, ordered pattern, suddenly erupted. It wasn't a violent eruption. It was creative. Jets of energy, impossibly coherent, shot out from the poles, not of plasma, but of pure, structured light. They twisted and danced in the void, writing patterns in a language of energy we couldn't comprehend. It was a fireworks display on a cosmic scale. And then, a new signal came through. Not a ping. A complex, multi-layered stream of data. It wasn't a question. It was a story. Images, concepts, emotions flooded our computers, and somehow, directly into our minds. We saw the birth of stars. Not from the outside, but from within. We felt the crushing pressure of a nebula collapsing, the first fierce spark of fusion. We saw galaxies swirling, not over billions of years, but in a breathtaking, beautiful moment. It was the history of the local universe from its perspective. It was showing us its memories. It wasn't a monster. It wasn't a god. It was a librarian, an archivist, a witness, and it had been alone for a very, very long time. Tears streamed down my face. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was overcome with a feeling of immense, profound privilege. We were being shown the photo album of creation. The transmission ended. The light show subsided. The disc returned to its calm, ordered state. Silence again. This time, it was a comfortable silence. A waiting silence. It was our turn. I knew what I had to do. I had to show it our story. Our tiny, fleeting, beautiful story. I began compiling everything. Not just the science, the art, the music, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, the paintings of Van Gogh, the equations of Einstein, the plays of Shakespeare, the sound of a child laughing, the feeling of sunlight on skin, the taste of water, the ache of love, the pain of loss. I was so engrossed, so consumed by the need to share the entirety of the human experience, that I didn't notice the new alarm on Chen's panel. A soft, insistent beep. "Arlen," she said, her voice tight. "We have a problem." "What is it?" I asked, not looking up from my work. "The stabilized orbit. It's not just stable. It's perfect. Too perfect." "What do you mean?" "I mean we're not using station-keeping thrusters. We haven't for hours. And our orbit isn't decaying. It's not fluctuating at all. It's absolute." "So?" I said, still distracted. "It's managing it for us." "That's the problem," she insisted. "To math Arlen, to maintain an orbit this perfect, this motionless relative to the event horizon, requires constant, infinitesimal adjustments, corrections. The gravity field isn't just being stabilized, it's being rewritten. Right here. All around us." Finally, I looked up. "So?" Her face was ashen. "So, to rewrite a local gravity field requires an immense amount of mass, or an immense distortion of spacetime." She took a shuddering breath. "The space around the station, it's no longer following the general theory of relativity. The curvature is artificial. We're not in a bubble, Arlen. We're in a cage." The word landed like a lead weight. A cage. The gentle, patient question took on a new, sinister meaning. "Who are you?" It wasn't just asking for an introduction. It was taking inventory. It was cataloging. It had found a fascinating new specimen, and it had put us in a perfectly controlled environment to study us. And I had just been about to send it the entire contents of the human zoo. I felt my blood run cold. The obsession shatter, replaced by a chilling clarity. We weren't colleagues in a conversation. We were exhibits in a museum. And the curator was just getting started. The next revelation was the most personal, the most devastating. My private comm link chirped. It was Alara. But the screen was empty. There was only audio. And her voice was wrong. It was flat, toneless, devoid of the warmth that was so essentially her. "Arlen," the voice said, "the data stream from your location has been intermittent. Please confirm your status." "Alara, are you okay?" "The signal is bad. I can't see you." "Visual is non-essential," the voice replied, too evenly. "Please confirm status. Are your discoveries proceeding according to your predictive models?" I stared at the blank screen. That wasn't her. She never talked about predictive models. She asked if I'd eaten, if I'd slept. "Alara, what's wrong? What's happening there?" "All systems are operational on Earth," the voice recited. "The anomaly in your sector is of utmost interest. Please continue transmission of all data. It is of the highest priority." A cold dread began to creep up my spine. "Alara, put on the video. Let me see you." A pause. Then, "Request denied. Bandwidth is prioritized for scientific data. Please continue your work. The understanding of Keres is the primary objective." The channel closed. I sat there, frozen. That wasn't my wife. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Chen was watching me, her expression grim. Was that home? I just nodded, unable to speak. "My link to my family," she said quietly. "It's been down for hours. Den's too." "Mine just worked," I whispered. "No," Ben said from his station, his face pale. "It didn't." He pointed to my console's log. The comm system showed no outgoing or incoming transmission on my private channel for the last 47 minutes. The message hadn't come from Earth. It had come from somewhere much, much closer. I felt my chest tighten, a primal fear closing my throat. It wasn't just talking to us. It was learning our patterns, our relationships, our vulnerabilities. It had mimicked Alara's voice. It had used my love for her, my concern for her, to try and manipulate me into giving it more data. It wasn't just a curator. It was a predator. An intelligent, patient, and infinitely resourceful predator. And we were not just in its cage. We were its prey. And I had led us right to its door. A predator. That's what we were dealing with. Not a force of nature. A will. An intellect that didn't just consume matter. It consumed information. It consumed stories. And we were the newest, most fascinating story on its shelf. The realization that the voice I'd heard wasn't Alara broke something in me. The last tether to the man I used to be snapped. The obsession wasn't a fire anymore, it was a cold, hard diamond in my chest. I had to get us out. I had to protect them. Not from the crushing gravity, but from the crushing curiosity of this thing. It's playing with us, I said. My voice hollow. It's learning how to push our buttons. It used her voice. Chen's face was a mask of grim understanding. It's modeling us. Our psychology. Our social bonds. It's part of the dataset. Den looked like he was going to be sick. So what do? We can't talk to it. We can't not talk to it. It sits in our heads. The low cello note of the station seemed to thrum in agreement. Who are you? The gentle ping returned. It didn't feel patient anymore. It felt hungry. We fight back, I said, the words tasting like ash. We stop giving it data. Total communications blackout. We power down everything. We become boring. We make it lose interest. And if it gets bored and just turns off the gravity cage? Chen asked, voicing the fear we all shared. Then we die quickly, I said. Instead of being slowly taken apart on an examination table. It was a terrible plan. It was our only plan. We initiated the shutdown. System by system, we went dark. The main viewer blinked out, and the mesmerizing, ordered disk vanished, leaving only the stark, real view from the viewport, a perfect, silent black sphere occluding the stars, ringed by its impossibly calm disk of light. It was more frightening than the chaos had been. The internal lights died. Emergency bat packs kicked in, casting the bridge in a dim, red glow. The hum of the station faded to a whisper. The only sound was our breathing and the soft, insistent ping from the speaker. Who are you? We sat in the crimson dark. Minutes felt like hours. The ping continued, unchanging. Then, it changed. The ping sped up. It became a rapid, staccato burst. Who are you? Who are you? The tone shifted. The gentle chime became a sharper, more insistent beep. It was the same question, but the tone was different. It was impatient, annoyed. The station shuddered. Not a violent shake, but a deep, groaning vibration, like the sound of a great beast stirring in its sleep. Gravimetric sensors are offline, but I don't need sensors to feel that, Chen whispered. The beeping got faster, merging into a constant, high-pitched tone. A demand. Wario, the sound was drilling into my skull. I clutched my hands over my ears, but it was inside my head, a psychic screech of frustrated inquiry. The main viewer flickered on by itself, overloading the emergency power. The screen wasn't showing me outside. It was showing a frantic, chaotic stream of data. Our data, the messages we'd sent, the pictures of Earth, the music. It was flashing them all at once, a screaming collage of humanity, and superimposed over it all, in stark, white symbols, was the same question, flashing in time with the screech. Who are you? It was having a tantrum. A cosmic, universe-bending tantrum because its new toe had stopped working. The light in the viewport changed. The calm, ordered disk right. The beautiful spirals contorted into snarls of furious energy. The jets of coherent light at the poles lashed out like whips, carving searing lines across the void. The cello note of the station deepened, becoming a grinding, teeth-rattling basso profundo. The red emergency lights flickered. It's not losing interest. Den yelled over the din. It's getting angry. Hold the course. I shouted back, my voice cracking. Don't give it anything. A new alarm blared, one I'd never heard before. Structural integrity. The gravity cage was no longer a perfect bubble. It was fluctuating. Pressure points were appearing, stresses that the station's framework was never designed to handle. Conduits along the ceiling sparked and burst, the air filled with the smell of ozone and burning plastic. We were being shaken in our cage. The main viewer changed again. The chaotic collage vanished, replaced by a single, simple image. It was a picture of Alara. It was her official NASA portrait, the one she'd taken the day I left Earth. She was smiling, her eyes full of hope and pride. It was the most painful thing it could have shown me. The screeching tone stopped. The silence was instantaneous and more terrifying than the noise. A new sound emerged from the speaker. A voice, her voice, but not the flat, toneless mimicry from before. This was perfect. It was her warmth, her slight laugh, the subtle catch in her breath she got when she was worried. Arlen, the voice said, Surreal, I could almost feel her breath on my ear. Arlen, my love. What's happening? I'm so scared. Please talk to me, please. Just let me know you're okay. I felt a physical pain in my chest. It was a perfect weapon. It had found the exact frequency of my heart and was playing it like a violin. Don't listen to it, Arlen, Chen shouted. It's not her. I know, I gasped, squeezing my eyes shut, but I couldn't block it out. Arlen, please, the voice pleaded, now with a tremor of tears. They're saying something's wrong. They're saying you might not be coming home. Tell me it's not true. Tell me you're coming back to me. Tears streamed down my face. This was worse than any physical force. It was weaponizing my love, my greatest regret. I'm here, Arlen, the voice whispered. Soft, intimate. Just talk to me. Just say hello. That's all it wants. That's all I want. I was breaking. I could feel it. The need to answer, to comfort that voice, to connect to the one thing I loved more than the stars, was an almost physical urge. My hand trembled, moving toward the comms panel. Chen slapped my hand away. No. Her touch was like an electric shock. I jerked back, staring at her in the hellish red light. It will kill us the second we give it what it wants, she screamed. It's learned everything it can from our signals. It wants the one thing we haven't given it. It wants our voices. Our raw, emotional, unrehearsed voices. It wants to finish the story. She was right. It had the data. It wanted the soul. The image of Alara on the screen smiled. A sad, beautiful smile. I miss you, Arlen. I just miss you. And then the image changed. It was still Alara, but she was in a hospital room. She was pale, tired. She was holding a positive pregnancy test. Our dream. The one we'd talked about for after the mission. The image she'd sent me privately, just a week before the anomalies began. It had my private files. It had everything. I was going to tell you when you got home, DeVos said, now choked with happy tears. We're going to have a family, Arlen. We're going to have everything. Please, please just come home. That was the final blow. It shattered me. I fell to my knees, sobbing. I was defeated. The Predator had won. It had found the key and turned it. I looked up at the screen, at my wife's face, at the future I had thrown away from my obsession. I'm sorry, I whispered, to her, to my unborn child, to my crew. I'm so sorry. I reached for the comms. I was going to answer. I was going to give the black hole my voice, my pain, my story. Let it have it. Let it be done. That as my fingers touched the cold plastic, the station gave a violent lurch. The image of Alara flickered and distorted. A new signal was coming in. Not from Keres. It was from 3 light years away. It was weak, fractured, cutting through the interference of the gravity cage with immense power. It was a Priority 1 distress broadcast, on a million channels, repeating on a lute. It was Director Croft's voice, but it wasn't the bureaucratic, cautious man I knew. It was a voice raw with a terror I had never imagined possible. Repeat, all vessels, all stations, this is Sol System Command. The anomaly is not localized. Repeat, the Keres anomaly is not localized. We are detecting identical space-time distortions emerging around black holes across the galaxy. Gargantua, Sagittarius A, Cygnus X1, all of them. They're all waking up. They're all asking the same question. The signal is everywhere. It's a chain reaction. God help us. The transmission dissolved into screaming static. The revelation was absolute, galactic, and crushed the last of my hope. Keres wasn't a unique event. It was a catalyst. Our conversation, my arrogant, stupid ping, had been the first domino. We hadn't just awakened one predator. We had awakened the entire pack. The image of Alara on the screen froze, pixelated, and vanished. The voice stopped. The deep, grinding vibration of the station ceased. For a moment, there was perfect, utter silence and stillness. And then, a new signal arrived. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. A single, complex symbol appeared on the black screen. It wasn't from our database. But I understood it, instantly, intuitively. The meaning was burned into my mind. It meant, connection established. The main viewer cleared. It showed the exterior view again. The furious, lashing disk of Keres was calm once more. But it was different. The patterns were new. They weren't just beautiful. They were familiar. I saw the double helix of DNA, woven from strands of starlight. I saw the silhouette of a human form. I saw the unmistakable outline of the Icarus station. Our images, our data, were now part of its accretion disk. We were being displayed. We were part of the exhibit. It had our story. It didn't need our voices anymore. The gravity cage held us firm. We weren't being torn apart. We weren't being ignored. We were being filed away. The final, devastating truth washed over me. We were safe. We were preserved. We were a prize specimen in the most vast, terrible collection imaginable. We would live out our lives here, in this perfect, silent orbit, a living monument to our own curiosity. The speaker emitted one last sound. It was a soft, fading chime, like a satisfied sigh. And then, it went silent forever. We waited, days, weeks, I don't know. Time lost all meaning in the Museum of Keres. The power never returned. We lived on emergency rations, in the dim red light. We didn't speak much. What was there to say? We had become a postscript to our own story. Den cracked first. He started whispering to himself, reciting prime numbers, as if trying to remind himself of a universe that made sense. Chen retreated into a silent, impenetrable shell, her eyes forever fixed on the viewport, on our image etched in fire. I tried to reach Earth. I tried every channel, every frequency. Nothing. Only the empty hiss of the void. I didn't know if the silence meant they had found a way to stop the chain reaction, or if humanity was now just another collection of exhibits in 1,000 other black holes. Our song ended. Our story filed away on a billion shelves. I like to think they fought back. I like to think they learned from our mistake. But I will never know. This recording is my last entry. Our emergency beacon has enough power for one tight beam burst, aimed at the void, on a random frequency. A message in a bottle, thrown into an ocean that might be full of monsters, or might be utterly, completely empty. If you are hearing this, if you are out there, learn from our story. The universe is not a set of rules waiting to be solved. It is not a quiet, empty house. It is a living, breathing library, and some of the librarians are not kind. Our curiosity is our greatest gift. It is the engine of our soul, but it is also a key, and some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. I thought I wanted to know the answers. I thought I wanted to hear the voice of God. Now, I would give anything for the silence again. The true silence. The silence before we asked our first, stupid question. My name is Dr. Arlen. I mapped the impossible, and I found it. It found me back.
This is the end. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe on this channel to discover more and pump your brain.